Hello everyone, today we will be learning how to make pumpkin chocolate chip cookies just in time for fall. To make these cookies, you will need all-purpose flour, granulated sugar, salt, pure vanilla, pumpkin pie spice, baking powder, baking soda, pure pumpkin, and mini chocolate chips. You will also need 2 mixing bowls, a hand beater or a mixer like this, an oven or a toaster oven. You will need cookie sheets, which I will be using these aluminum sheets, and some parchment paper, and also some spray to keep your cookies from sticking. I almost forgot. You also need some softened butter and an egg. So let's get started by measuring out our ingredients. I almost forgot one important step. Before you start making your cookies and putting your ingredients together and whatnot, you need to preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Yes, so we're going to do that right now. Alright, we have it to where it's heating up. Alright, the first step in the recipe, after you turn on the oven, is to add the flour, baking soda, baking powder, pumpkin pie spice, and the salt into the bowl. So we'll go ahead and do that. And it doesn't say anything about sifting in the recipe, and if I don't have to sift, I'm not going to. So we need 2½ cups of all-purpose flour. So what I'm going to do to make it easier on myself is to just use a ½ cup measurement and then just count out, since there's 2 halves in a whole. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 halves. So we'll just measure that out. 1, 2, 3. Oops, sorry. 4. My camera's shaking, guys. Sorry. 5. Alright, now that we have the flour in, we can measure out, let's see, what was it? The baking soda and the baking powder, which we need a teaspoon of both. So I have 2 separate teaspoons. We have a lot of baking implements and tools here, so I just, instead of having to wash one, I can just, you know, and if you have any trash, you can just lay it to the side until you're ready to throw it away. So, and I try to make sure when you're doing this, like, I don't know if you saw me, but I was pressing the side of my measuring cup up against the side of the bag so that I could even it out. So you can always even it out. And make sure you wash your hands before you start this, or you wear gloves. I was going to wear gloves, but I can't. I'm not very good at wearing gloves while cooking. I've tried before, and I always end up ripping my glove and it gets in the food. So just make sure you have your hands washed really well. I know this thing opens on the side, but I can never open it on the side. Give me a minute, I gotta open this and then I'll be right back. Okay, that took me a minute, but I got it open. So just need a teaspoon of that. I'll put these aside. And now I need a tablespoon of pumpkin pie spice. So we'll open this. Take this little plastic thing off here. Now this one, you have to sprinkle it into, and I usually just do it over the bowl. If there's a little extra in there, it'll just be a little extra spicy. That's good. And then I need a ½ teaspoon of salt, which I've got my ½ teaspoon here, and my salt. Now I'm not going to pour this over the bowl because if there's extra, you will tell, and it won't be very good. So if you get it on the table, it's okay, just as long as you don't get that extra in the bowl. Alright, so it says to mix it, and usually what I do is I just take whatever measuring spoon I have and I just mix it up. That way you don't have to dirty another dish. And just mix it up real good so it all becomes incorporated. Alright, now we'll move on to the next step. Alright, now that we have the flour mixture prepared, we will make the wet mixture. We need to add a stick of softened butter, which is a ½ cup of butter, if you didn't know. And a lot of butter will have these measurements on the side if you buy a stick of butter. And I'm using real butter, but I'm sure margarine would be okay. The recipe does not specify. The one that I got, and I will make sure that there is a link to the video or to the website that I found this recipe on. All right, and then we need to add, let's see, I'm looking at my recipe over here, 1½ cups of granulated sugar, which is just your regular table sugar. I don't know why all these things are difficult to open today. Probably because I'm doing a video. If I wasn't, they'd be fine. Don't you hate when stuff like that happens? Okay, so since it calls for ½ cup, I'm using this cup measurement right here. It's 1 cup, but down to this little part in here, you can't see it on camera, I don't think, but it says ½ cup. So I'm just going to set this down and kind of pour it in there. I probably should have just opened one end of the bag. And then I'm gonna shake it as I go so it'll even out. It's almost there. So I'm starting with that half first. So put that half in there, and then I do a full cup. Oops, I just spilled some. You may or may not make a mess depending on how skilled you are. I know the best chefs probably make a mess too. Alright, so now that we have our sugar and our butter in a bowl, we will move on to the next step, which is to cream the butter and sugar, which is a fancy term for beating it together until it's nice and creamy. Alrighty. Alright, for this step, to beat the sugar and the butter together, you will need a mixer like this, or you can hand mix it. It'll take longer. So if you're going to use a hand mixer and you've never used one before, if you're going to use this before or used an electric mixer, I recommend having an adult with you to try this. But you will start off slow because it'll want to throw it around and then you'll have a mess all over your kitchen. It looks funny right now, but it'll come together and be creamy. And that's why it's important to let your butter soften so it'll come together nice. Okay, now that we have creamed our butter and sugar, we can move on to the next step. We will need to add the pumpkin, egg, and vanilla and mix it until the batter is smooth. So, with the pumpkin, I've got to open my can here. And this can of pumpkin has, let's see, it's 15 ounces, so that's almost two cups of pumpkin. So we'll just do about half of this can. If you have an electric can opener, that works really good. We only have, I have a hand opener here at the library, so. And make sure you're really careful when you take the lid off, because it does make a sharp edge, and we don't want anybody getting cut. I'm just gonna move that over there. So I need, well, let's see. I need a spoon. I always do not come totally prepared. I'm just gonna, it said to add a cup, so we'll be precise and measure it. Now, according to this can of pumpkin, it's pure pumpkin. Because sometimes pumpkin pie isn't actually made with pumpkin, it's made with squash. And this is supposed to be 100% pure pumpkin. So let's hope that it is. If not, it's okay, because, you know, the imitation really does actually taste really good. So, okay, so now we'll add that pumpkin in there. Make sure we get as much of it out of here as possible. Oh, sorry, you can't really see what I'm doing. Raise this up a bit so you can see. I'm just trying to get all this pumpkin out here. And if you, one thing that's really good to use for baking and things are these things here. They're called rubber spatula. Just in case you didn't know. I'm not saying you didn't know, but. Alright, and then we have to add our egg. And usually what I do is I take like an empty container that I just used, and I crack my egg into it. My mom always told me to crack an egg into something first and then crack it into, or pour it in the recipe, just in case the egg is, something's wrong with the egg. Like it could be rotten or something. And whenever you touch egg, if you get egg all over your hand, try not to touch a bunch of stuff, because egg can, they can cause salmonella poisoning. Okay, so we got the egg in there. Put that aside. And then we need to add a, let's see, a teaspoon of vanilla extract. So I've got it here. And the recipe calls for pure vanilla, but if you only have imitation, that's fine. Usually though, you can find the pure vanilla, like you can find the generic, which I'm glad, because hey, I know a lot of people are on a budget and I'm one of those people. But luckily here at the library we were able to get some pure. If a little bit extra spills in there, it's okay. You don't want a whole lot extra, but if it spills, that's fine. Okay. So now that we have all that in there, we need to mix it again. So you get your mixer back out and you start mixing. One thing you can do as you mix is you can stop every once in a while and scrape down the sides, just to make sure that everything's getting mixed together. Now we will slowly add our flour mixture and beat it. Not a Michael Jackson beat it, a cooking beat it. Just as you're mixing, you can, if you're that skilled. If not, you can stop, add. But some people who are experienced can add it at the same time while mixing. So let's see if I can do it. Not bad. As you add your flour, it's going to get thicker, so you'll have to put more elbow grease into it. Okay, now that you have it all mixed up, the next step will be to add in about a cup of chocolate chips. And I usually don't measure that. I just pour it and, you know, measure with my heart. But if you want to be precise, you can do that. So we'll go about, I think that's about a cup. And you can mix these in. You don't have to super duper mix it, just kind of incorporate them. You don't have to over mix it, so. And it'll be a little harder to mix since it's so, I keep hitting this camera, sorry guys. Just kind of incorporate the chips in there. And it'll be thick because it is a cookie batter. Okay. I can fit 2 aluminum trays in this toaster oven at a time. So that is what well, I might just fold this in half because it's not wanting to. It's good to use parchment paper because it'll help your cookies not stick as bad. Don't use wax paper. Use parchment paper because from my experience, every time I've used wax paper, the wax ended up smoking, and then I had to, you know, open the windows and try to get the fire alarm to turn off at my house, not here. Gosh, it'd be awful. But just take some of your Baker's Joy or whatever type of spray you're going to use and just lightly spray the parchment paper. I know it doesn't look like I'm lightly spraying it. And then you're going to drop a rounded teaspoon of cookie dough. And a trick you can use is to actually spray some of that onto your spoon and just kind of shake off any if there's too much. Okay, so you're just gonna gather a decent sized scoop of your dough and plop it onto the cooking sheet. And since I have smaller sheet, I'm just doing 6 cookies on each. But depending on if you're using a full-size oven or if you're using a toaster oven, your cookie sheet may be bigger or smaller. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill these up. And then we'll wait on these cookies that are in the oven to get done so we can see what they look like. Alright, the timer went off, so let's see how they look. Alright, let me move this out of the way. According to the recipe, they need to be brown around the edges. Oh yeah, you can tell that these are definitely done. Alrighty, so get a close-up of these cookies here. They look pretty good. We'll try them in just a moment. Okay, so now I'm gonna plate the cookies. You don't have to plate them, but I'm gonna be serving them to my coworkers. And so I'm just going to take a spatula here. Let me try to zoom out here. I'm gonna take my spatula and get them off here. Well, that didn't work very well. And just plate them on here. Try not to touch the cookies. And then you can just add all your cookies on their plate. So you see I have them here. Look how delicious they look. Alright, it's time for a taste test. Let me grab one of these here. Ooh, they're very soft. Ready? Delicious. Chef's kiss. Well, I hope you all had fun today, and I can't wait to see if you all yourself have made these cookies or have any variation. So, until next time, happy baking!